Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of It Takes Two. I'm Emily,
And I'm Quinlynn.
and today we're talking all about Scooby-Doo 2,
My absolute favorite movie.
which still kind of baffles me. I didn't realize until I went back and watched this. I have seen this movie so many times, and I have blocked out every single memory of ever seeing it.
That's so funny because watching it, I could say word for word what's going on. Right now, trying to think about it, I'm having the hardest time. But while I'm watching it, I'm like, I know what's coming, what's lines next, what's happening. It's there.
It's funny to me because it is shot so 2000s,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very much a comedy, but I was watching it, I was like, why do they have such good messages, like, throughout it?
Yeah, like interview with Daphne and Fred, like Sarah Michelle Gellar is like going off about how it's not a boys cartoon or a girls cartoon, and it's something for everybody to enjoy, and the messaging, and it's there. And then Freddie Prinze Jr. is like, it's a talking dog. Like that's what he brings to the table. It's like, it's cool, it's a talking dog. But in the same sense, yeah, like the messaging, it's absolutely hilarious. They've got some great action scenes that when I was a kid, I thought it was the coolest thing ever, like Scooby-Doo with riding the fire extinguisher, to like spray all the monsters down. Like, thought it was the coolest thing.
I was pretty impressed by their portrayal of Daphne, too, because sometimes I feel like the cartoons made her a little bit of like the dumb blonde character,
Yeah.
but she was fixing circuit boards. She just karate fights everyone. It was wild.
Yeah, well, like in the first movie, they even talk about how, like, she's a damsel in distress, and she's like, don't make me a damsel in distress, like I know how to fight, this and that. And she still has those girly like characters, like when she's like, oh, let me get my makeup, and Velma still makes the comment like, now Daphne, really, like, why would you need to do your makeup right now? And then like, bam, she figures out how to do the thumbprint scanner with her makeup.
I do have to say, I did love Scooby and her go-go boots.
Oh, 100%. Like, he's like, Shaggy's like, your go-go boots didn't fit me. And Scooby's like, look at me.
Honestly, the animation's not bad either.
No, there's a couple scenes where I'm like, oh, like there was a couple. Um, but for the most part, it was great.
Especially for the time.
Mm-hmm. And the soundtrack, all the Simple Plan songs and everything
Yes.
else, it just makes that movie like so much more 2000s, so much more nostalgia for it. Like, I love it.
All I have to say is it makes so much sense knowing your music taste and knowing that
Yeah,
this is your favorite movie.
this is like literally one of my favorite movies, and I listen to the soundtrack of this movie when I'm like, what should I listen to today? And I'm like, I haven't listened to the Scooby-Doo soundtrack in a while, so
I mean, I can't knock it. It's Simple Plan and it's got some Bon Jovi thrown in. It's pretty iconic.
it's literally killer. I absolutely love it. Oh my goodness. One thing that always kind of like, or not always, just watching it this time. So I actually have watched it twice since we talked about watching this,
Nice.
because I love Scooby Doo. But one thing that got me like cracking up is thinking about how many lines of Matthew Lillard's are to Scooby, like Shaggy talking to Scooby, and he's not really talking to anybody because Scooby is not like, he's not a dog that they animated. He's literally just straight animated. Like, he's put in there. Like, he's not talking with somebody the whole time.
Well, he actually might have been because a lot of times they'll have some guy in like a mocap suit doing the lines.
That's true for sure. But I think about like, he was not, I would say at least half his lines he says to Scooby, and there's no Scooby. Like,
That is a funny thought.
And he's in so many different movies, but this particular, like, just talking to nobody and somebody who has says Raggy and Rutro and like everything with the R, like
That's the other thing is like Matthew Lillard isn't in a ton of scenes with the rest of the gang. It's just him and Scooby.
yeah, like 90% of the scenes that you do see him, he's with Scooby and that's it.
Yeah. It's yeah, you're literally watching two separate movies of one of the gang just trying to solve the crime, and then Shaggy and Scooby trying to be like, "But I want to be cool too."
Oh, one line that literally cracked me up that like, so I haven't seen this in a long time. Like I said, I watched it twice when we talked about it. So like I watched it yesterday and the day before. But since then, it's been years since I've seen this one. I've seen Spooky Island quite a few times, but this is the first time that I've watched Monsters Unleashed in who knows how long. But in the beginning of the movie, they go to explore Mr. What was it? Wickles? Whatever his name is.
The one that they call the ugly guy.
Yeah, the mansion that they go explore in the beginning. He's like, why can't we just go to a Burger King? Like
Me too, though.
he's like, why can't we just explore Burger King?
I love that there was a Girl Scout just trapped in there with him. She's like, "Do you want cookies?"
And they're like, and then the person, like, I don't know, I would say some religious like group or whatnot, they're like, have you heard the good news? And Scooby's like, there's cookies. Yeah, like I've heard the news. Yeah, no, the whole Scooby and Shaggy like side mission. Like they're on their own side quest the whole time. And I absolutely love it. The fact that like the toilet brush, he's like, these aren't clues, Scoob. Like,
Just because you can sing in it doesn't mean it's a clue.
yeah. And then he's like, we're changing. And they're like jamming into this. And then at the end of the movie, he's like, which one of you stole my toilet brush? Like, I think just the humor in this movie, the one that always cracked me up when I was a kid was the weak spot of the Dark Knight.
And she just kicks him in the crotch.
Yeah, and then he's like right in the round tables, and I think that like that humor was like my top tier humor when I was a kid, like right in the round tables, like totally just so off the wall, but it made perfect sense.
It's just hilarious to me because I associate this movie with the movies on Cartoon Network that I always hoped they didn't play because they played them like 3 times every weekend. And it was always
Yeah.
this, Batman and Robin,
Mm-hmm.
and Teen Titans Trouble in Tokyo. And I love Teen
Okay.
Titans, but it was overplayed.
It was, yeah, one of those movies that they played every single, yeah.
So I think that's why I blocked out this movie, even though rewatching it, I realize I know like everything that happens and I've seen this many times.
Yeah, it just it felt right watching it. So that's why I watched it the second time because I was like, man, I missed this. And then what? Seth Green, like I totally forgot Seth Green was in this movie. That's the guy that Velma is like the museum curator guy.
I didn't even process that was him.
And so like I've seen him in tons of movies since then, obviously. But like as a kid I didn't know him, from other
Yeah.
things yet. So now seeing him as like the music or the museum like curator, that's the position, right? Because he talks about how his museum got broken into and all of that. So I just assume that's his position or whatnot. But he plays a funny character. Like,
I really thought that the entire time it was him.
I know they Shaggy's like he was working both sides of Psycho Street, like, and oh that scene where he is playing the tough guy. I don't even remember what Shaggy said in it, but oh well, it was like Seth Green was just trying to be like Patrick. That's his name in the movie, right? Patrick.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so. But anyway, he's like, you got to be a tough guy, you know. These guys will push you around, blah blah blah. And he's like, trying to like scare Shaggy, and Shaggy's like, I know you could probably do this all night, but I gotta go. Like, you're crazy. Like, oh, his part in the movie was good. So for those of you who have not seen this movie, go watch it right now. Obviously, it will just put you in your feels for sure. Even if you didn't watch it growing up, I guarantee it'll give you some nostalgia for sure. But basically, it's called Monsters Unleashed because they open a museum to show off all the costumes of all the bad guys that the mystery gang has solved, all the mysteries. Basically, this masked guy, comes in and starts stealing the costumes and making real monsters out of the costumes. And the whole movie is them trying to figure out who this masked guy is and how they're going to get rid of the real monsters now that they're not just dudes behind a mask. They're actual monsters. Like a skeleton, and there's a minor 49er, and, there's different monsters. And so a pterodactyl is one of them. And so the whole movie is them, like, trying to reverse this monster process and unmask this final guy. That's the whole movie. I mean, there's so much more to it. Obviously, it's a comedy. There's got to be lots of side quests going on because,
It's an early 2000s comedy.
yeah, exactly. But overall, that would be the gist of what the movie is.
Why in this series of live action Scooby-Doo movies are there so many real monsters?
Because we never see. Are you saying because, like, we don't see them capture any of them, like, ever? Or
Well, like in this movie, the monsters are actually real. Like he
mm-hmm.
uses science and makes them real somehow. And then
Yeah.
I might be wrong, but in Spooky Island, like it's still some sort of monster thing going on.
Yeah, it's like, what makes these real versus not, or why are they real? Like, what is.
In the original Scooby-Doo cartoons, none of the monsters were ever real. That was the whole thing. That's why they unmask the people.
Yeah.
Except for the Thanksgiving episode, which was also overplayed, in which the Twitches had to perform real Wiccan magic to get rid of the real ghost, and Scooby was a giant turkey, I think.
Yeah. Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. So I think the reason these ones were real, they talk about how they've unmasked all of these monsters, and they talk about how Velma, when she's having her, like, nervous breakdown when Patrick comes, and she's like, I love the facts, like, it's usually just a sad little old man inside. We've unmasked all these people already, and this and that. And so I think that's kind of where we know that they've already captured all of these. Yeah, they've caught all the bad guys, essentially. They captured all the bad guys. And then for some reason, the pterodactyl guy survived a fake death and got randomonium, which is kind of, that's the sciency behind it, is randomonium.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're able to genetically modify monsters. Like, and so they have a machine, and then
I only have more questions from your explanation, but I don't think you have answers for me, so.
yeah, probably not. I mean, I don't know why specifically these ones were real, because Spooky Island is also kind of real. Like, they're weird alien things. I don't really know what they are, but they're monsters. And then in the end, they, like, disintegrate by light, and it's all behind Scrappy Doo.
There's just a lack of reality in all of these, which, to be fair, again, they are movies about a talking dog.
So how real, like, do they really need to be?
Okay, so when I was watching this, I noticed in the credits, it was written by James Gunn. Like, James Gunn, James Gunn.
I don't know who that is.
So, James Gunn, who did Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. I see the parallels already.
I didn't realize he was a writer on Lollipop Chainsaw. Suicide Squad, Scooby-Doo, Dawn of the Dead.
Okay, yeah, so I totally see some of the parallels between these movies. Like,
100%.
all have great soundtracks.
You know, that is a good point.
Yeah. Another music element that I absolutely love in this movie is when Shaggy and Scooby are undercover at the like bad guys hangout,
Yes.
and he's Creepy McCrawley and SD what did it was Scooby Doo SD something. So it was Creepy McCrawley and SD something, and they're the dancing. They're like, poo, poo, poo. And then his afro, and he's like just jamming out with the afro, and then it flies off, and that's what makes everybody realize that.
My favorite trope.
Yes, well, also they make a comment while he's at the bar that I never got before this either until I watched it this time. Um, One of the guys says, he's like, "You should get out of this business while you can. Like, it's not good for anybody. I'm sorry about your buddy's nose deformity." As if like that's what's wrong with him, not the fact that he's a talking dog, but he has a nose deformity. And then in the movie, in Spooky Island too, everyone's like, he dresses up like a grandma, and everyone's like, "Whose grandma is this?" And like nobody just acknowledges the fact that
It's a
he's a
dog.
dog. And I think that's my favorite. Yeah, like favorite trope is like Scooby Doo with a wig. Bam, he's not a dog.
That is the equivalent of Daphne trying to fight the electricity monster with karate.
I know. What was she thinking with that?
She like just goes for it, gets zapped, and flies over to where Freddy is.
Because she's so smart throughout the movie,
And then she does that.
and then she just like flies away and lands in Fred's arms.
I watched that, I was like, who thought this was okay?
I know, and then her like hint at jumper cables. She's like, "You know that jumper you used to have, and we used to watch cable." And then he's like, what the hell are you talking about?" And then he looks, and there's jumper cables, and then bam, guess what? They defeat them. Like, why did
Wild.
she have to fly and karate kick the the 10,000 volts ghost?
Literally, she's as smart as Velma in this movie.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, even Fred has his moments, like when they're at the old hangout and Velma starts explaining how they can possibly reverse the monster creating process. He finishes all like all of her sentences and describes the exact way to do the reversal. Like he just knew too.
How are they this highly educated? It's confusing.
Well, and then that's another point. When Shaggy and Scooby are taking the potions, he gets to be the big buff dude, he gets to be the woman, he gets to be all these, at the very end he's like, "Man, that was just like my first year of college, my freshman year of college."
Yeah,
So like they're all educated in the sense that like they've been to school. He said his freshman year of college. Obviously he's older than that.
they're like adults, because I always think of them in high school. I think that's where a lot of the cartoons were.
They were like at that like 17, 16 age in, or even 18 in some of them. Yeah, they were just right at that like older teen age. But this one, yeah, like the only reason you kind of know that they're older is because the fact that they've done so much.
Yeah.
And then they show that picture of them when it's like looking back on the old days, and I would assume that's probably them in high school
Yeah.
when they're playing frisbee. So yeah, because like even Shaggy said he went to college. Like,
I have a big question for you as a Scooby-Doo lover.
yes,
How do you feel about the new Warner Brothers Velma that's coming out without Scooby?
I saw a couple people rant about the whole people are different races, and it's like, oh well, like why? That doesn't take away from the character at all. But I didn't realize that there was no Scooby. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna feel that, because Scooby Doo is probably,
Scooby-Doo is the reason you watch Scooby-Doo.
yeah, everyone else's side characters.
Literally, it's called
I mean,
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, it's I just couldn't see how you do it. Yeah. And I've watched, I mean, tons of spin-offs. I watched the little mini ones where they're like kids, like babies when they're doing it. I've seen tons of the movies, like old school VHS tapes. We used to have this huge collection of them, you know? The Mystery Incorporated TV show, What's New Scooby-Doo. What's New Scooby-Doo is probably one of my favorites.
That one's probably the most iconic.
But yeah, I had no idea that Scooby-Doo wasn't in the new Scooby-Doo.
That's why it's called Velma now.
Oh, okay. Weird. Yeah, I never caught on to that because I've seen a few videos about the remake, but yeah, I haven't looked too much into it yet. One of the things that I want to talk about this movie in the old version versus this version is the dog subtitles. I'm going to look them up right now. So, in the very beginning, when they're doing their like red carpet walk at the opening of the museum, you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about?
Yeah.
And Velma sees all these girls. They're like, Velma, yeah. And then Fred's handing out ascot after ascot after ascot to all
Yes.
the pretty ladies. And then these two dudes are like, Daphne, we got you tattooed on our chest, you know?
That one guy's tattoo looks like a man.
Oh, yes, they're not very good tattoos. But I think it's so funny, all the different things. And then Shaggy is walking and he starts smelling something and then notices his crowd of total hippie stoners chilling there cheering him on. I thought that was absolutely hilarious. And then we get the dog part. It's funny and it totally made a difference rather than the dogs just barking.
Yeah, it's not just dogs barking at Scooby, like they're actually talking to each other.
I really would love to show you, like, and just read you some of the funny things they say, but I know one of them's like, will you sniff my butt? Or, like, just like really weird, like, it's dogs talking to dogs. And that's another thing. How does Scooby talks to people?
Yes.
But here, he talks to dogs. But in the other movie, he can't talk to a cat. He just barks at a cat. And I know cat is not a dog, obviously, but I'm just saying he doesn't just speak English.
How dare you assume that all animals speak the same language, Quinlynn?
I just never would have assumed that Scooby could talk to dogs because he talks to humans. It just didn't compute in my brain.
I still question how Scooby can talk at all.
Yeah, that's totally true.
That's just a magical realism element of you're not supposed to ask, it just exists in this world, and we move on.
Yeah, no, totally. That I mean, it makes sense. And for a lot of movies, and obviously for years and years and years, I've never asked questions like, why can Scooby talk? You know, it's a talking dog, bro. Like, leave it alone. I want to know, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I found a video that might show me what the dogs say. Oh, okay. They're talking. The dogs are talking. Sign my bull is what one of them says. Tug on my chew toy, and the other one says sniff my butt. Like, how cute is that?
That's honestly kind of precious because they're dogs.
Yeah. So it's like the big dog says sign my bowl, and then the little tiny like Pomeranian says tug on my chew toy. And then the bulldog is like sniff my butt.
Very
Like,
bulldog of him.
yeah, and I just think it's so cute. And I'm like, it was missing from the movie. It's the little things, guys. Like, why put the subtitles just as barking when there are actual.
It originally had subtitles of what they were saying.
Yeah, and I didn't used to watch movies with subtitles, but it showed up because they wanted you to know that they were talking.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you watch any show that's made in English, a lot of times if they bring in a character that speaks another language, they'll just automatically put subtitles so you can understand.
Yes, because, you know, how else would you know what they're saying? So yeah, this just didn't make any sense how they wouldn't include what the dogs were actually saying.
Disappointing, Netflix. Disappointing. That's 2 Netflix fails in a row, guys. Back to back weeks.
Dang. Overall, though, I'm pretty stoked that they put this movie on there because I'm going to watch it like 10 more times.
I'm not, but I'm happy for you.
Yeah, and they got the other one on there. I'm just gonna be watching them all the time.
It's nostalgic. By no means do I think it's a bad movie. It's just not my kind of movie.
There's my cat.
Penelope, you are not a part of this podcast.
She could be. Look, every week now, if we're doing visuals, we'll get to see her. Yeah, no, these movies, absolutely love them. I just wish they would also add back the TV shows too, because
Now that I'd be watching on a regular basis.
she's going for the camera again from a different angle, so I can't reach her.
Well, I think Jelly's telling us it's just about time to wrap up.
It's bedtime.
So we'll see you guys in the next one.
Peace out, Cub Scout.